Happening. There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. Welcome to a demo on PeopleSoft ePerformance. If we're expecting something else, I'm sorry to disappoint you. So we're going to go over the ePerformance module. Our main focus today is going to be based on looking at the manager-employee interactions through a performance review cycle. Before we get fully in, I just want to give a little intro about myself. My name is Charlie Stegman. I have been with Aspire Consulting since 2008. I have worked with PeopleSoft since 2002, so that 21, 22 years, something like that. I've worked both in the HCM space and the financial space. Aspire Consulting, a little bit about ourselves. Go ahead. We were founded in 2006. We do work all throughout the US. We support implementations for those that are still doing them. Mainly, we do any upgrades or new module add-ons such as ePerformance. In addition to PeopleSoft, we also support Taleo, Oracle, HCM, and ERP Cloud. All of our resources typically have about 22 to 20 years of experience that we would bring to any project. So what we're going to cover today is we're going to go over define what ePerformance is designed to do. We will look at the team performance and tiles. We will look at how to generate documents. We're going to complete an ePerformance review cycle, performance cycle. We'll add goals and competencies. We'll look at a checkpoint. We'll look at peer input, and then we'll look at the final tasks that are done by a manager and employee. I'll be popping in and out as the manager and employee as we go through things. And then we'll have some time for some Q&A. So with that, so what is ePerformance for those that don't know? ePerformance is really designed for employees, managers, and HR administrators to collaborate, communicate, assess, and monitor evaluations, primarily around performance and development. But really, the module itself is designed for you to create the templates that you need so you can have a variety of different templates that you use if they're slightly outside of that performance and development cycle, but those are the primary applications. So I am logged in as a manager right now, and I am going to check out the team performance tab. This is kind of where all of the basis happens. Everything that you see here is obviously security driven as well. So if you don't want somebody to have access to business objectives or restrict certain administrative tasks, you'll be able to do that. But within the team performance as a manager, if I do have access to administrative tasks, I can come in here and I can transfer a document to somebody else. I can reopen a document, cancel, delete, enter preliminary ratings, view documents. I can also have the ability to create documents by group. That's sort of the batch process to do that. And we'll see that in a little bit. Within the team documents section itself, this is where you can kind of take stock as a manager of what documents you have open and where they are. So what flow of the process then? Are we just starting out? Are we in the midst of tracking progress or checkpoints? Are we doing the evaluation? Are we getting an acknowledgement that's coming through? Lots of great filters here off to the side to see what you want to see. The document type here is really going to be based off of what you configure in the system. So this list can grow and contract based off of the types you have, as well as what's in queue and happening. This is also, you can create documents individually as the manager if they're given access to do that. So let's talk about creating documents. So I'm going to go back to the administrative tasks. We'll talk about doing it in batch first. This is typically the way most organizations would do it if you're not going to have anyone create things one-off. You have create documents by group. So groups are shared throughout the PeopleSoft application. ePerformance is one of the items that uses them. Compensation uses them. We're going to choose this group here. And then I'm just going to pick Alex. You have the ability to select all individuals that would be selected by this group, or you can select individuals within that group. Continue. And then here I put in some parameters. I am actually going backwards in time just because of the data we have available in our demo environment here. And I'm going to choose my annual review. I can choose to clone it from prior documents, and then I choose my template. So within the type, you have a variety of templates you can set up. that then drive what contents are in the document itself. I can hit create, and document created successfully. And I believe he reports to me. So if I come back over here, I would see Duncan's new document. Should see here. So there's Alex Duncan define criteria for that review cycle. The other way to create documents, if you're not doing it from the administrative perspective, is you would do it through just create document within the team document tile itself. So we're going to do that. And I'm going to create one for Cynthia, and this is the one we're going to walk through. We're going to go through the cycle here of a performance document and talk about all the fun things that you can do. So I'm going to pick Cynthia, continue, put in the same parameters I did for Alex there. Again, you'll see there's a bunch of different types out here. I'm choosing the annual review, and you can have different document types and or templates. So perhaps you have one annual review type, but you have a template for maybe hourly and salaried, or you have one for maybe your operational folks and your back office folks. You can split up the templates and how populations get sucked into them a variety of ways. So we just have it simple here right now with an annual mid-period. This means it's just a single mid-period here, and I'm going to hit create. So right now you'll see that this is in the define criteria step. I will select into this, and we are going to see once we come in, the information that you see in here is basically all configurable as far as if there's competencies, goals, what sections essentially are in this is all driven by that template. The steps that are all part of this process are also configurable, what steps you'll have. So we've got define criteria. We have a checkpoint. We only have one. You can have up to 12 checkpoints per year. And then that's built off a performance calendar that you would create. Then we have finalizing criteria, and then we have the evaluations themselves that take place. You'll notice peers aren't in here. For anyone that's looked at ePerformance in the past, adding peers now can basically be done at any point in the process. You're not locked to it just happening at one specific point in time. And we'll see how to add peers, but peers is basically done through this little icon here. The information you see in the header here, I have every field option checked on. But so all of these are options that you can see in the header. You can turn these off. So if you didn't want to see the department number, or you didn't want to see the location or years of service or years in job, you could actually turn that off. These are all individual checkboxes, again, within the template. So different templates can have different points of interest at the top. So we're going to move on and look at these other pieces. So I have an employees goal section, a competency section. You'll see some other sections come up as we move through the document. Mainly, you'll see comment sections and signature sections, which don't come up until the actual evaluation. What somebody can do in these sections is all configured by configurable by the template. So I may set it to where I don't want the manager to add goals. Maybe I only want the employee to add goals, or vice versa. I don't want the employee to add goals. I want the manager to add goals. That's all configurable and controllable. We're going to pop out here as the employee in a moment. Same with this section here. So each section is controllable. I can have different roles perform different actions or have different abilities within the document, and those actions can change as you work through the steps. So perhaps during define criteria, people have more abilities than they do as we work through items. So let me pop out as Betty, and I will sign in as Cynthia, and we'll take a look at the employee perspective as we start our journey here on our performance documents. So an individual, an employee under employee self-service would see performance. And then within here, they can get to business objectives or my documents. We're going to go to my documents. Evaluations for others. This is where peers would actually go through. And again, we'll see that in a little bit. So here's my annual review. So I'm going to select that. And I am going to start doing some work here as the employee. So I'm going to enter my goals for the year. Goals can come in a variety of fashions, and this is, again, all configurable. So you can set predefined goals and only allow users to choose predefined goals that you've set up as an organization. Of You can have your own. These are basically free form goals. This allows an individual to put in whatever goals they want kind of as on an ad hoc basis. The fields available here are dependent on how you configure your template. Business objectives. So if you decide to leverage business objectives within the application, you can do one of two things. You can cascade business objectives into the review by linking that to that section of the template. And if objectives are cascaded in, an individual cannot remove them. The other option you have is somebody can just pick from business objectives and say, yep, I want to say we're going to effectively manage department. For predefined goals, I will go ahead and choose large lot. There's 39 rows here. If I do a search, I can say increase revenue by 5%. And then you'll notice my little number here keeps going as I add more items. For my own goal, I'm going to say create job documentation, which will probably never get done because it never gets done, but we'll put it on here anyway. You'll notice most of these other fields these aren't required. The only required field is the title. But I can, oops, get that 1231. I have status. These are configurable as well, so you can have different statuses for this if you wanted. We're going to say not started. And then I'm going to go to my document. So this allows you to copy items from a prior document and put it into your current document if you wanted. So maybe there's a recurring goal that you want. So this is the document I found, my annual review from 2020. I hadn't completed it yet. That's fine. And I'm going to say improve communication with team. And now I'm going to hit done. And we will see that I now have my 4 goals here. What I can do is after I've put my goals in, I can further refine them by selecting into them. So now you'll see that, hey, effectively managed department expense has an employee measurement field to it, a due date, a start date, just like the manually created goal, a status. And then it has this section down here for business objectives. Again, if you're using business objectives, you can turn this on and it allows me to say, oh yes, this goal, not only can I cascade business objectives, but I can align my goals to business objectives as well. So we're going to say monitor and control corporate spending. And then if you click this little chain here, it'll show you kind of what this rolls up under within the business objective set. We're not going to have a lot of time to delve into business objectives. It is another piece that you can build out and it ties directly in with performance, but it's not a requirement and it shouldn't be a separate cost for you if you're looking at ePerformance. So we can say review of the P&L will show 5% increase over last year, something to that effect. I don't have to go back out and get to the next one. I can just scroll through the top here to get to the next item. So now I have increased service revenue by 5%. That was the wrong goal, but that's all right. So we've got whatever I can, again, same thing, employment measure, all these fields are based off of configuration. And then I can just scroll through and make my changes when I'm happy with what I have here. So this was my manual goal. You'll see here, now I see description, now I see employee measurement and the other pieces I filled out. The last one I want to go to though is the copy. You'll notice that it would have copied over everything if I had this filled out from the prior year. What it did copy over were my due date and start date, which I had as 2021. So I'm going to hit save and say that my goals are now done. So I'm going to go back into the document and here these are updated. I'm still in the define criteria phase. I can again see the other ones here from the employee perspective. Whether or not an employee can add a peer will depend on configuration. So the way this one is configured is an employee could add a peer in for feedback in the process. And I'm going to say that as an employee, I'm done. The 3 ellipses here, vertical ellipse, give you different abilities to do things. So you can add attachments, configurable, you can export it. See the last time it was updated, that's the overall document. Within employee goals, I can delete multiple items, I can reorder. So if I didn't like the order these are in, I can move them around. I can delete If you can delete an item is all controllable through configuration. So maybe at the initial onset of defined criteria, I'm allowed to delete goals, but then later on in the year, I don't want them to do that. I can turn that functionality off. So then we have competencies. You'll see have a similar functionality. I'm not going to add any competencies. I'm going to leave that for the manager to do. So I am going to save this one more time just to make sure it's saved. And then I will pop back in as the manager. Go. One of the differences you might notice here when we get back in is only the manager can complete this phase. The employee doesn't have that ability. So the manager has to push this along. From an HR administrative perspective, if you've got managers that are lagging behind or haven't done things, you can actually force things through the process as well. In the back end, you can force documents through as well. So I'm going to come into competencies. You'll notice that abstract thinking and ability to prioritize tasks were here when I started the document. You can precede documents with competencies or goals, depending on how you what sections you have. You also have the ability, if you're running profile management, to feed in competencies or other items from a non-person profile. And that all depends on how you configure your template to manage that. So I just had 2 different competencies set to feed in. So I'm going to go through and maybe add some others as well. Again, what I can do in here is all controllable by my template settings. So I'm going to come into competencies. I'm going to add some. And we are going to look at our predefined. So if I hit search right here, you'll notice there's content group type and content group. So I have 315 competencies that I've all pre-built out within, really that comes from profile management. If I don't like what I have, or I want to narrow it down because like this list is too big, I can do that. I can say competency type, and we're going to choose customer service, and then I can hit search again, and then it's not searching across everything. It's only searching within that content type and group. And then I'm going to say customer service orientation. And I will come to my own, and I'm going to add in improve communication with area leaders. You can set target ratings on these things too. We'll talk about the different ways that ratings can be displayed, because you're going to see them displayed 3 different ways. That's intentional. I intentionally don't have it set up to be one consistent flow because I wanted you guys to see all the different options. So we're going to say meets expectation, and we're going to hit done. Similar to what you saw with employee goals as under the employee, again, depending on configuration, I can then come in here and add additional items. So I have abstract thinking here, and I could potentially make modifications depending on what the settings are. These don't allow for that. But then here, I can add sub-competencies. So if you wanted to, we have customer service orientation. Whether or not you have predefined or freeform, again, is all dependent on your configuration. So we're going to say focus on customers, resolve customer issues. These are all predefined. I don't allow freeform in this case. So now these are additional items that I can base off of. Now here you'll see the target rating looks different. I have the numbers next to the items. And then if I see my little help icon here, it'll kind of help me, give me a little more information from what those items mean. So I'm going to hit save. And then I'm going to come back. And so I've got my goals, I've got my competencies. This was all due by March 15th. So I'm just going to say it's complete. So that gets us through that define criteria step. And now you'll notice that we're in step 2 of 4. And if which is checkpoint 1, you'll notice that the points, that's where I am. If we also look over here, we can view instructions. And this helps me kind of understand, hey, what am I supposed to do at this point? You'll also notice this bar here says Cynthia cannot see your evaluation. So one of the requirements here is that within the checkpoint, I go through and make my updates as the manager. I can make those updates and not share those updates with my employee until I'm ready to actually have that checkpoint. And then I change the visibility. I can push through this step without changing the visibility by skipping. You'll see skip checkpoint. If we do choose skip checkpoint, what's going to happen is that gets logged and tracked. So there's an audit that the checkpoint didn't actually occur. So that can be reported on as well. So I'm going to go through and what I want to do is I want to go in as Cynthia again, and I want to make some updates to my form during the checkpoint. And then I'll share my updates essentially with my manager when we have our one-on-one. So now you'll notice I lost my defined criteria. Now I'm under track progress. So this page dynamically updates depending on where your documents are. And I'm going to come in here and I am going to add. So you'll notice we have new sections here. I've got a summary, employee comments, and there are manager comments. And these say manager comments are not shared. So what I can do is I can come into, I'm going to say improve communication with team. This allows me to add a quick comment or note here without actually going into the item. So let's say done. So if I come back in here too, I can see different things. So I saw as a description, I could throw that, but then there's my evaluation comment. So again, it's currently not shared. I could then cycle through and update all of them. You'll also notice down here, I've got a 2 stack. That indicates that I have subtasks within that or sub items. So that's what those little stacks mean. So I'm going to come into competencies as well and see if I can update anything. It all depends on my configuration. So I'm allowed to add a description here if I want. I can add a comment. So then we can save that. So then I'm going to change my visibility and I'm going to say manager and me. So now what happens is when I log back in as Betty, who is her boss, I will see those comments added and then I can make my own changes as well. Before I log out though, at this point in the checkpoint, because of configuration, I could delete a goal. I can update them obviously, or I can add new. If I wanted to add competency or goals, I could do that the way this is set up. You can turn that functionality off at the role level within the template. So again, each template is its own configuration. You also have the ability to clone templates. So if you have a good baseline template and you want to build other ones off that and make modifications, you can do that within the configuration itself. So it's not an all ground up build every single time. Back into our team documents. And here we're under track progress. So this is the one that I want. And I am going to make some updates myself. I am going to add a new goal. And I am going to indicate my own goal. Company type, there we go. See, that's going to start on June 1st. Don't like the order of the fields. We're going to say it's here. And we'll just say that. status, not started, percent complete, none, so I can add it to the list. Hit done, and we'll see this added. And then what I can do, if I wanted to, I could come back into this and I could actually align it to a business objective and fill out all these other fields if I wanted to. And then what I can do is I'm going to ability to prioritize tasks. I'm going to update this to a 4. And I'm going to leave a comment here. We'll save this. And we will come back here. So we can see now, I can see everything that really Cynthia did. So no comments were added. If I put comments here and I cycle back, so when I change the visibility of this, then Cynthia would be able to log in and see them. And then again, you can see where we're at in things. So here's the overall. I have last updated this export, notify, print, clone. If I look at the overview here, this kind of tells me everything that's going to happen with this. So we've defined criteria. We've completed that. We've done the check. We're doing the checkpoint right now. These are all the steps. This will change depending on what you have in your document. And again, that header is still here. If I wanted to see this information, it just comes in collapsed. So I'm going to try and hit complete, and I should get an error. It says error found, fix the issues listed, and try again. The nice thing about this here is it tells me, okay, you need to share your evaluation. If I select this little caret, it takes me right to it. I don't have to find it. If I'm new or not sure what's going on, hit done. And now I can hit complete. And we'll move along in our checkpoint status. So now we're at finalized criteria. So here I can go through and make sure everything's finalized. Again, what can happen in here is all dependent on your configuration. So we could add additional goals. We could update the goals, comments, notes, all those sorts of things. I will log back in as Cynthia, but the manager has to complete this step. So the employee can update it, but the manager has to complete it. If you have the ability or turned on the functionality to put in preliminary ratings, those will carry forward to the final evaluation when you complete this step. I'm also at this point going to nominate a peer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and we'll see how this works in a moment. Peers have to accept the nomination. So if they can reject it, they don't have to participate. This is not a required step. You can also set up in your template how many peers have to participate, like have to even be requested. So right now mine's set to 0 to 5. So I don't have to do any, or I need to at least request 1 or whatever number that is. I'm going to hit save. You can set up some, there's some checkboxes for anonymous settings on who can see whose detailed information or name, both on the employee and manager side, as well as the peer side, to keep things a little more generic and that information invisible, depending on how much you want to share. Again, you can also control who can do that step. Now you'll notice here, there's a little blue dot, kind of hard to maybe see. I don't know what you guys can see over there, but little blue dot, that indicates that there's a peer that's been added or attempting to be added. Make that a little smaller. So if I wanted to, okay, I've added my peer, I can add additional comments, or I can, again, prove I can come in here really quickly and add a comment. Done. And then we'll know that we have that comment in there based off the icon change. Again, I could delete, or I can go in and make further changes to this on a more granular level. So I could add more detail here, change dates. I can scroll through. You'll also notice this down here, view prior step evaluation. So this basically just shows you what it looked like in the prior during checkpoint, if there were any comments or ratings put in, things of that nature. So you can kind of go back without actually going back. And I will log out really quickly and pop in as Cynthia, just so you can see her viewpoint on this. And then we will log in as Rosanna Channing, the peer, and see what it looks like to fill out some peer information on items. My document, track progress still, so we're still there. So again, looks very similar, right? I can also see this because of the way my settings are. So I can see that, oh, hey, your peer, Rosanna Channing, is here. And again, I could add as well if I wanted to get somebody else involved, I could do that. Betty currently can't see this. So again, I have to change my visibility here if I wanted to do that. But we are going to maybe come back into improved communication with area leaders, and my ability to do any preliminary ratings isn't turned on, but I could, add comments, make other updates. Leaders. And again, I can look at prior step evaluation and see what things were. So I can see that there. We'll save this. And I will change my visibility. Manager and I, done. So let's pop in as the peer and see what that looks like. Change it. Come on. There we go. So I will now come in as Rosanna Channing, and you guys can see what a peer would go through. The sections that a peer has access to, no surprise, are configurable. So you may only allow a peer to give feedback on goals or on competencies or whatever sections you create. They do not necessarily get to see everything. So you can restrict the sections. So I'm going to come into my documents and evaluation of others. Should be there. Did it not go through? Why don't I see it? That's not good. I was expecting to see that. Did. That's the wrong tile. So we'll come back in and see if we need to resend it. So it does show that she's there, so I'm not sure why she's not seeing it. Just delete it, we'll add her again. All right. We'll try one more time. If it's not there, we will move on. Essentially, the view for a peer, if it does not, for whatever reason, show up, it was working last night, looks the exact same as a employee or manager in the sense that they can see the sections that they're allowed to see, and they can interact and leave comments, or they have the ability to possibly leave ratings if, I don't know why it's not there. That's weird. Or they can leave ratings if that's turned on for them. So that, again, that's all configurable, but they would see the exact same. They would see under evaluation of others, they could click into it, which is what she's supposed to be able to see, and it's not showing it. So I'm going to go back in and I am going to push the finalized criteria through and then say we're basically ready for our evaluation, our final year-end evaluation with Cynthia. So we're here. And we're going to say this is complete. Probably going to get an error because I cannot see the evaluation yet, but we'll see what happens. You're about to finalize criteria. About sharing the evaluation, do you want to continue? That just means that Cynthia couldn't see my comments yet. That may be fine if that's what I want to do. It's not a hard stop. So now we're in the evaluation phase. So here I am, complete manager evaluation. And I can go through now and you'll notice that there are now rating boxes. So these are the official ratings that I can put in, and where these rating boxes show up and where I can and how I can rate is all dictated by configuration. So you may not have an overall rating by goals. You may just rate each individual goal. You can have weighted ratings if you want. You can also have the employee rate themselves or not. It's up to you, again, depending on how you configure. But you'll see, okay, so there's a couple different types of rating styles. There's the stars. So we're going to do 5 stars. There is, which then once you pick the star rating, it will adjust the text here. There is the this is just the drop down. It doesn't show you the number ratings next to it. So we're going to say meets expectations, and we're going to go into all of them because I have to rate all of them in order to move on. And then under goals, I believe this one has no, it's under competencies, has the what they call the radio button, which is a drop down now in Fluid, but it shows the numbers next to it. So we're just going to go through and I'm going to put in my ratings on all these because it will not let me continue unless I complete that step. So let me just scroll through here. Cynthia's doing a great job. I can, again, obviously put comments down next to each thing as I go through. I'm going to say that one needs improvement. And meets expectations. And one more. So we'll save that. We'll come back into the overall document. And now I can see that I've got those all graded. So then what I can do is I can come over here as well. That's for the comment, but it also gives me other rating as well. So if I didn't want to go into each one and scroll through, I can also do it quickly here. So here you see little, fair, good, very good, expert. So this is, again, sort of a different style of, they're both drop downs, but this one just shows the number next to it without having to click it and then see it's a 4, a 5, a 2, a 1, whatever your values are. But these I'll go through. I could put a comment in at the same time that I mark the rating. Whether or not you actually have to rate sub competencies is a setting. So here we have a different rating here for this one. Rating style, really. We'll see if we've got it turned on for the sub competencies. So the sub competencies do not need to be rated. If they did, they'd have options for a rating as well. Let's do fair. And I'm going to say done. If I wanted to, I could add an attachment from here as well. So attachments were available the whole time. So if we, throughout the year, if we wanted to attach emails or other things to this, we could do that, or other feedback in other ways. So I can add a comment. So this is my final evaluation comment. Yeah. So that's just the overall comments. This is the overall summary. So give them a rating. And then I will hit it. I'm going to log in as Cynthia so you guys can see her interactions through this final phase as well. Performance. My documents. And then you'll notice we're in the evaluation progress. So I can now just moves down on the list here. And then I believe she has the ability to rate items as well. So I can say, I think I'm doing great. And create job documentation. Maybe needs improvement there. The only ratings that are typically required are the manager's ratings. So you could push past this step and not have the employee rate themselves, or you could just set it to where they don't have to, and just turn off the ratings of this, or ask them to rate their goals overall instead of each individual goal. It all depends on how you want to configure it. This, and then this is my overall. I think I'm awesome. And then I have my competencies as well. And you'll notice I'm not seeing my managers yet because I'm not through the steps. So I don't get to see that yet. Abstract thinking. There. The writing tools option down here, that's basically to give guidance. So once you write a comment out, you can select writing tool and it'll make recommendations for maybe softer wording or a better wording choice to eliminate any sort of inflammatory type of text in a document. And that can be turned on and then you have to configure it. So overall, I'm going to give myself a 4 on my competencies. And I also think I'm great in general. So that's that. And then I can have an overall this is my overall summary. So overall summary comments to here. And then I'm going to save this. And we will complete it. So my self-evaluation is complete. And I haven't finished it yet for Betty. So so now my boss can see this. I just can't see theirs yet. And we'll go into team performance. And go back into the document. So we're in our final evaluation here. We got Cynthia's feedback. Mine's in here. One of the other items I can look at here is a 360-degree review. If my peer had put in comments, that would show up as well. And it kind of goes through section by section. So we've got each goal, and it shows the employee where they think they are. So I can see that when they submit their evaluation, their self-evaluation. So what I'm going to do is at this point, I'm going to say I'm going to share this with the employee. Peer data would be on there as well. You can view a graphical rating here for the overall, the employee. And then, so what we'll do is we'll share this. So you select share the document with Cynthia and discuss the value with the employee, or cancel and remain on the page. We're going to share. It tells me my overall there. So now request acknowledgement. So basically what would happen is I would have the review with Cindy. We would go through the document together. And then I would request her acknowledgement. That's how we're going to capture an electronic signature. So you don't have to print this out. The employee would then sign it digitally, and that is all captured within the document and can be reported on. So if I sign out, we'll see what Cindy sees now with that acknowledgement. So this is the one that I want. So she too can see the 360-degree graphical rating. And here she sees what she rated herself and what manager gave her. So she can, this is kind of a better summary of looking, instead of looking through all the text, kind of gives an overall piece here. Again, we back out of that. And I can choose then to leave one final comment. So basically, hey, I'm going to acknowledge this review. I have one final comment that I can leave here in the employees comment section and say, you know, whatever I want in this box. And then that'll get stored and done. And then I can say acknowledge, confirm. Now, submission. So depending on how you configure your document, when you submit for approval or what your approval process is, there's a couple different ones that are pre-delivered. They use the approval workflow engine. So anyone familiar with that within PeopleSoft, you can go around and reconfigure that if you don't like the approval flows that are pre-built. But essentially what would happen is you either in batch push all those things for approval from the HR administration side, or you ask your managers to say, yep, request approval, and it would usually typically go up to their manager for approval. You can get HR involved and they can approve it as well. It just all depends on what you're using and how you configure ultimately the approval workflow engine if you make any changes to that. But that is the general flow of ePerformance. I will take one moment, since we've talked about how everything's configurable, to kind of show you the main piece to that, where you start dropping everything in and how you start setting everything, which is your template. Recently visited, because I should have been there. There's a template definition. Here we go. We have a few minutes left here, and then I'll open it up to Q&A. So if I come into, this is the one I've been using, the demo here. So it gives me my description that I see. It indicates what business process I'm going to have. So we have nominate participant, we have track progress, we have defined criteria. That track progress basically is the checkpoints. The performance calendar will dictate how many checkpoints you actually have. You can force a minimum character count in those comment boxes if you really wanted to. Instead of just turning it on and somebody could still bypass, you could force them to put a comment in. This tells you who's part of the evaluation process. So employee, manager, peer. That evaluation document header where we saw all those fields, this tells you who can see what. So if you wanted the employee to see less than the manager, you could do that. If you wanted the peer to see anything, you can turn those on, but they're all the fields that come out of the box. Within the process tab, then, this tells us who can define criteria. So manager, employee, employee only, manager, who has to approve it, manager or employee, allow attachments. So this tells you who can and can't do it. The track progress of the midpoints. So again, if you had more midpoints set up, you would see them all here, and it's based off that calendar. This allows you to basically say who can do updates during the checkpoint. And then again, who can do attachments. And within the finalized criteria, then you indicate who has to complete it. So employee, manager, manager, and employee. Allow attachments again, so you can control those attachments throughout the process. And then nominating participants, you can decide who can do it. And then you can control different things like who can view before, after, so on and so forth. And then within the review participant evaluation, essentially it's all tied to the manager. You have different options: employee, manager, manager, employee. And then here is kind of how the flow goes in terms of approvals. There's several different delivered ones. You can decide which one you want to use. And again, these all tie back to the approval workflow engine. So you would find these over on the approval workflow side if you wanted to make any modifications to them. Self-evaluation, again, allowing or not. Evaluation rules. So this is the way you would potentially round and things of that nature for the scores. And then tabs. This is not really used anymore. This is somewhat deprecated because everything's really moved over to Fluid. So you used to be able to see different tabs for each of those sections, and now it's all just one scrolling page. You still have to build this out. You just don't necessarily see the tabs anymore behind the scenes or when you come into it. And then here are our sections. So there's that goal section. I indicate where it's displayed. So is it first, second, third, things of that nature, what sections it's included in. So maybe we don't even set goals until include in track progress. We indicate if the section is rated, and then we put our rating methods in. If it's weighted, for the items that can be there, you can enable items, freeform, if they're, the rating next to those, all the different fields that are available, the table that's potentially used. So all those boxes control those fields that you saw. Sub items, if those are turned on, this is where you attach those. If you're going to pull anything from profile management, and then what profile type you want to use. And then all those different steps that we went through, this is what controls what somebody can do. So you've got add item, update, delete, copy objective items, all that during define criteria. In the track progress, we've got kind of similar piece of whether or not you can delete, update. And then there's the rate comments. If you want to even turn those on, you could include rating up front if you wanted to during that process, just so people can give feedback as where they think they are. And then that final evaluation, you'll notice on goals, I don't have a peer at all. But you can rate, weight, and you can say the section or item or sub items. If it's required, you can make it required for the employee, but it's by default required by the manager. You can't turn that off. And then if you get into the sections, you can do other things like comments, employee comments, item, what you can and can't do. A couple other sections called out here. So that's competency we saw. There's that summary section. So that's if you want overall, and then you want to do an overall rating, you can do that. The employee feedback is an optional section, doesn't have to be captured. Same with the manager comment section. You don't have to have that. And then if you wanted that e-signature through acknowledgement, that's really where this is. So that is ePerformance in a 1 hour session. Questions?
I don't have any questions in the chat, Charlie.
Yeah, I didn't see any.
But yeah, if anyone has any questions in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask questions.
Ultimately, the goal behind ePerformance and the way it's been structured and designed is to make it very configurable for your business needs. And it does tie into profile management. So those predefined items are actually configured on the profile management side. Your rating boxes, all of that's configured in profile management. Profile management should be part of your, let me see if I can get that pulled up, Leslie. See if it's here. I have to remember where they put it. So you've got acknowledged. And then if you were to print it, I believe it shows up in the print as well. Try that again. The notification process too is that it's all configurable throughout the different types of notifications people receive throughout the process. As far as how many days before, how many days after, all of that, there's a whole notification engine process for that. There we go. So here is the printed version and all of its pieces. I believe all the way at the bottom, acknowledged by Cynthia Adams on this date and time. Any other questions? Okay, well, if anyone's interested in the recording, please feel free to reach out through that invite and we will get it out to you and make it available. Thank you.